So, Mega Man X, my favorite game of all time and one of the most iconic games of all time. I'm not gonna lie, man, if you asked me how I felt about this game like 4 or 5 years ago, I'd probably tell you that it was a little bit generic because I actually preferred X2 back in the day, but I don't know, looking back on this first one, there's something about it that's just a little bit different. Replaying through the game again made me realize that there's a lot of gameplay elements within this one that just aren't typically in newer games nowadays. Like the gameplay design and the little motifs of the story of X getting stronger throughout his journey, the collectibles and items you can do throughout the stages to make him stronger as a character. These are all things that are attributed to the game design of the game, and it's really good, man. So we're going to be talking about that today, and I hope you guys stick around. So, before I actually start with the actual contents of the game, I wanted to bring up a little bit about my past and sort of the games I was playing back then, since it took me so long to play Mega Man X. So, for me, I'd actually call the Super Nintendo like the golden era of gaming. I didn't have one because I was a fucking toddler, but you know, I had to wait for a lot of these games to get re-released on the Game Boy, like Super Mario World and A Link to the Past. But as a gamer, I did recognize its influence. Around this time, I was playing my GameCube or my PlayStation 2, and some of the games that just represented those eras. You'd probably assume I was playing games like Kingdom Hearts, Ratchet & Clank, Sly Cooper, shits like that. And you'd be correct. These were primarily the games I was playing back in the day, trying to master them and be the best, to a fault. And I gotta say, although I do love these games with all my heart, I still have to acknowledge the fact that Super Nintendo games are really just the golden era, like I said. They just had a different way of engrossing a player to play their games. And that brings me to my next point, the newer games that's coming out nowadays. Don't get me wrong, I love games like The Last of Us and God of War, but I'm not gonna lie, ever since these games came out, they started this new trend. This is why I tell people, if you wanna know why gamers love video games so much, go and play Mega Man X, seriously. And don't get me wrong, the game's not easy, it can be really hard sometimes. But with that being said, I do think that there's something there for everyone, whether you're casual or if you decide to play this game hardcore. So, Mega Man X, where do I start? Well, let's start with the intro stage. Now, I used to watch Ego Raptor a lot. He had a pretty good discussion about the intro stage of this game. So if you haven't watched his sequelitis, I'll gloss over a little bit about what he said. The intro stage technique is brilliant in games. There's zero tutorials, no hand holding, and the game tells you everything you need to know through its game design. There's enemies you need to jump over, enemies you can't jump over, enemies in the sky, enemies down low. There's so much here. And it's just you figuring out how the game works. That's how you play the game. Another cool addition is mini bosses. They're kind of there for a midway point to show you what you've learned so far and how you can apply it. So eventually, you drop into this ditch, you don't know where to go, you start jumping on walls and boom, look at you, just jumping on walls now. No tutorials needed or nothing, you learn that yourself. So you get toward the end of the stage and you meet Vile. He's one of the primary antagonists in this game. So you start to fight him and then, you know, he just starts clapping your shit. None of your moves are working on this guy. It just seems like he's eating all of your moves. Back then, I genuinely thought you had to beat this guy because I don't know, the other bosses didn't have health bars either. So anyway, this giant blast comes up and this guy with long ass hair dashes in. His name is Zero, by the way. But he tries to take out Vile and he just escapes. So he turns around, looks at you dead in your face and just says, hey, you're gonna be stronger than me one day. But this is cool because the game starts to open up. You get to choose any of the Maverick stages, go to their stage, kill them, and then you get to take one of their special abilities. These abilities are unique in the sense that they provide usefulness other than the desired use of killing enemies. We'll discuss that usefulness later, but I wanted to talk about how these special abilities can be a weakness to another boss. For example, like Spark Mandrill. This guy right here. Let's just say you wanted to beat Spark Mandrill with the ability you just got. So you go through a stage, collecting obtainables, blah blah blah, and boom, you use the ability right on him, and it works like, I mean, pretty much how you would expect it to work. If you don't want to use the abilities, you can always opt in using the Buster as well. That always works. Now that we're done talking about the special abilities, let's talk about the collectibles. There's 3 different types: the armor pieces, the sub tanks, and the heart tanks. You find these throughout all the stages. Let's talk about the armor pieces first. First up is the leg piece. This is pretty much going to be the first piece everybody gets because this is Chill Penguin and, you know, everybody gets this one. But you can imagine pretty much what you're going to be using for it. Just dashing around stages. Next up on the list is the chest piece. You get this one after beating the mini boss in Sting Chameleon stage. He absolutely sucks. It took me like 4 minutes to beat him because he's so tanky. But once you finally beat him and you get the chest piece, it gives you more durability. Which is good because enemies hit really hard in this game. So once you get the chest piece, you can actually feel its change. You ever be playing a game and you got some new armor and it just says some BS like, oh, you know, you got 4% more damage. Like, oh my god, like I can totally feel this. Like, come on, dude. Like I literally can't feel that. Next up on the list is the headpiece. And this one is you know, it's something. You know, it's definitely something. Which segues me into the next armor piece because you need the headpiece to get it. And this is the coolest one of them all. Seriously. It's the arm piece. It's the super mega wave blast looking thing. It's all shiny and twisty and pink and it can pretty much one-shot any enemy. So, except for the bosses. So there you go. We're all done with the armor pieces. But now we have to move on to the other two collectibles. The heart tanks are scattered throughout the various stages. There's about 8 of them. Sometimes they're hidden, sometimes you need to beat a mini boss to get them, and they're pretty much what you'd expect. They just increase your maximum health. Some of them are hidden in a cool way. Let's just say you beat Launch Octopus and you go back to stage select. You immediately go to Sting Chameleon stage to collect the heart piece. The entire underground area will be flooded because you just beat Launch Octopus. Some of these heart tanks require special ability prerequisites. Like the one on Boomer Kawanger stage, where you have to get Shotgun Ice from Chill Penguin stage. These are just some of the examples of Mega Man X having great game design, and showing a player to utilize their entire arsenal. As for the sub-tanks, there's 4 of them, and I find these to be typically more hidden, but what they allow you to do is heal yourself. If you happen to be full health and find any extra health lying around, they'll go directly into the sub-tank. So if you're getting destroyed by a boss, you just pop these things and boom, right back to full health like nothing happened. These also have pretty unique collect conditions and have prerequisites tied behind them, sort of like the heart tanks. They can be meticulous to find, but if you get them, they're definitely worth it. In Flame Mammoth stage, you need to get past these blocks to get this one. I remember this one taking me quite some time to grab. Or like the Spark Mandrill one, where you have to time your boomerang throw perfectly to get it. It was quite the pain. Well, that's all the collectibles. And now that you feel well equipped, you can take on Sigma in the final act of the game. So you officially made it to the Sigma stages. These in my opinion are some of the most well-crafted stages in video game history, and there's a reason for that. You see, when you usually play the final levels in a video game, you're met with a huge spike in difficulty. This game instead wants to show you how strong you've actually become, which is a night and day difference with how this game began. In a way, you can say that the game starts off difficult and gets easier as it goes on because of the collectibles, because of the armor pieces and special abilities. This, my friends, is good game design, good theming. The game is trying to communicate a player-character relationship by showing you how strong you've become by playing the game the way you wanted to play it, and not how the game told you how to. The bosses represent this very idea, and so do the stages. By this point, you'll be finding yourself zipping through Sigma's Armada like it's nothing. Speaking of Armada, the story comes to a close here, and by the end of Sigma Stage 1, you'll have a rematch with Vile, and I love it. You'll meet Zero and Vile in the next room, where Vile threatens to destroy Zero if X doesn't back off. Obviously you don't, and you get the opportunity to fight Vile again. This fight is made super easy with the homing torpedoes. He may hit you a few times, but if you memorize his attack pattern, you can make quick work of him.
This victory is immensely satisfying, since you've been wanting to beat this guy since the beginning of the game, and you finally did. So you run over to Zero and he tells you his power is fading. This event in the game made me a bit emotional due to the fact that he's not there to help you stop Sigma. This guy saved your life and told you that he can see your potential and that one day you'd be stronger than him. Zero's like a parallel to you, and he's a goal that you should look up to as you progress through the game. Obviously he's in sequels later on, but still, to see him lie over and die like that was just something that my little heart couldn't handle when I was little. Nevertheless, you continue to fight through Sigma's armies and beat the bosses. One thing I forgot to mention is the fact that these stages have boss rushes, where you have to beat the previous Mavericks again. But like I said, these segments are made easy because of your abilities and everything in your arsenal. It's a testament to the game design again, to show you that these guys were once formidable, but now can be easily exploited and beaten. They're paced out really well, so I never felt annoyed fighting them again. The music in the final act is really good too. They all fit the climactic atmosphere at this point in the game. Sigma Stage 2 happens to be a top 3 track for me, not gonna lie. It has that feeling of just somberness. You beat the Sigma Stage 2 boss and then you head on to the Sigma Stage 3 boss. Both aren't too big of a deal if you know their weaknesses. This leads us to the final stage to fight Sigma himself. There's no level here, it's just climbing all the way to the top. If you notice throughout the levels, you're just going higher and higher until you reach him. So he pulls up and he looks menacing as hell. This ain't no Dr. Wily, nah, this guy's got a full cloak and an attack dog. So he says his little monologue and then he sicks his dog on you. The dog's pretty fast and can do a lot of damage if it hits you, but if you time your dodges and attacks and memorize its pattern, you'll be okay. Also, you can make the fight easier by using its weakness, which is shotgun ice. So the man of the hour pulls up and he rips off his cloak and whips out a lightsaber. Look at this dude, man. Now this fight can be difficult and unpredictable if it's your first time. He doesn't really have a weakness and he jumps all over the place and blocks all attacks. Once you beat him though, he goes all freeze on you and enters his final form. It's called Wolf Sigma. The same thing applies to this fight. He doesn't really have a quote-unquote weakness, but if you're using Rolling Shield, it's pretty much your best bet. The fight can be tedious and long, but he choreographs all his moves. The only problem is he hits extremely hard, so keep that in mind. If you die, you gotta start all the way over from the dog portion of the fight. And that's Mega Man X. Coming up with the script for this video was hard, because I didn't think I'd be able to sum up how much this game truly meant to me. It holds a special place in my heart, and honestly it's one of those games I can go back to every single year and play it over and over. I never get tired of it. Even on my last playthrough I started gushing about all the bosses and stages as I was recording. Its game design is unparalleled to anything I've ever played before. The music is great, all the power-ups are unique, and although I did like X2 and X4 probably a bit more back in the day, I still acknowledge that this game was the pioneer. Honestly, if you're a gamer and haven't experienced this game, I strongly urge you to. It represents a time in gaming when developers were more crafty on how they taught their player how to play their game and keep them playing. But I am pretty excited about the upcoming releases like Final Fantasy 16 and Tears of the Kingdom. This is a new channel and this happens to be my first review. I plan on playing a lot of games here and giving case studies on how I feel about them. So if that's the kind of thing you enjoy, you came to the right place. Gaming's been my passion for over 20 years now, and I want to share my experiences and thoughts on new games or maybe ones that were previously released. So if you have any suggestions or criticisms, I'd love to hear them all. I know I said the Super Nintendo was the golden era of gaming, but hey, you never know. Maybe in these next few years we'll reach a new golden era. Hey, thanks for watching, and follow us on Twitch. We stream over there sometimes.